I can't wait for you to hear today's story because we have a wonderful speaker, V. She is a mother of 3. She was born and raised in Waynesboro, moved away, and then came back last July to be closer with family. But that is not my story to tell. That is V's story to tell. So please, everybody, a round of applause for our speaker, V.
Hello. First off, can everyone hear me? Not exactly sure that confident that the mic is working, but I think I have a pretty loud voice. Are we good? Okay. Like Annika said, I do have 3 kids, so used to projecting. I'm so happy to be here. I've only just begun really to get to be a part of this community. My friend Zeke told me about the one in the Charlottesville chapter, and at the time I had no idea that there was also a Shenandoah Valley chapter until my friend Lee saw me at the Charlottesville chapter a few months ago, and she's like, I know you live in Waynesboro. Did you know that there's also a chapter there? So I got to meet Annika and Megan and a number of you other beautiful people. And it just means a lot to get to have this kind of community here in my hometown. And as Annika said, I was born and raised here, graduated Waynesboro High in 2006. And then the second half of my life until last summer had lived primarily in different states, or at least, other than some time in Richmond and Harrisonburg. But last summer I came back here. So it's both very familiar and very new, especially this incredible park. So I'm really thankful to share this sacred space with you all this morning. What I'd like to do first is pass around some index cards as we listen to a song called Metamorphosis. Maybe I can help you. Yep, the bigger one.
And play now.
Yep.
Okay, I'm hitting play now.
So this is, if we can turn it up a little bit. Yeah. It's called Metamorphosis. And as the index cards get passed around, I'd love if you could consider, this is the invitation this morning, to consider the identities that you carry. So, mother, father, brother, sister, caregiver, business owner, career woman, whatever it is that when you think of yourself and you want to put a label on yourself, whatever that is, it could be one thing, it could be 10 things. I do just ask that you leave 3 blank spaces at the bottom of your cards or something that we'll do later. Don't fill the entire thing up. When you think about who am I, whether that's what you see yourself as, or is it labels that you know that other people put on you, whether it's labels that you love, that you really identify with, that would be really hard to let go of, or labels that have been put on you that have always been a huge burden. Whatever comes to mind when you think of who am I, what are my identities, what are the roles that I play, I want you to write those things down as this song called Metamorphosis plays. Thank you all for engaging. We can stop that perfect. Who had ever heard that song before? Metamorphosis. Anyone? Hi sis. Hi sis. So won't read the whole lyrics, but especially wanted to point out the part that says, I was born for this. Metamorphosis. Give it a little more time. A little more time. Wet wings. They will dry. This change, it feels like death. Okay, so with that casual, not super intense start, into this theme of ritual. I didn't know if it was a regionally chosen theme or globally, so that's really cool to know that it's like the global theme. Wow, cool. So as I contemplated on what ritual means in my life and why I wanted to incorporate this idea of metamorphosis into it, to me, the reason that I put ritual in my life is to serve as a tool for remembrance. Okay, so the rituals that I enact in my life are in order for me to remember what I've forgotten. So if I've forgotten something, then there has to be a releasing of whatever it is that's holding me back from remembering what is true. So when I engage in ritual, it is primarily to remember 3 things that somewhere along the way, that day, that week, that year, that decade of my life that I've forgotten. I want to remember these 3 truths as I engage in ritual. I want the rituals that I do to help me remember that I am beloved, that I belong just as I am, and that I am held. It is our birthright. It makes me emotional looking at each of you, half of whom I know and half of whom I don't, but you're all human and equally divine beings. And thinking about how easy it is for us to forget this birthright. This is our divine birthright. To know that we are beloved, that we belong just as we are, that we are held. And most of us don't really feel that and aren't empowered by that truth in our day-to-day lives. Why? We deserve to be. Why? What rituals can we do to help us remember these truths that we were made to know? And what is it that we have to release? Or in other words, what is it that we have to die to? What metamorphosis, like a caterpillar to a butterfly, do we have to undergo that is hard as fuck? I mean, it is painful. I think if the caterpillar knew the process that was about to happen before the butterfly was about to be born, it probably would be very, like, I am not going to just dissolve and become goose. No, thank you. I will stay as my goofy caterpillar self. Sounds good. You know, we stay in the familiar. We stay in the safety zone. And then we miss the glory of the rebirth of the butterfly, right? That's why the song means so much to me, is because it expresses this reality of the death that we have to undergo in order for the newness that our soul longs for and knows that we're so deserving of, but that we've forgotten. And I think ritual can feel really intense. And now that there's not a time and place for like very seriously thought out, large, setting, community gathering rituals, but I would love for us to consider finding ritual in just the mundane. It doesn't have to be something extravagant. It can be something you already do that you bring with such heart and intention and with that passion for, like, I'm doing this because I want to remember that I'm beloved. I want to remember that I already belong. I want to remember that I am held just as I am. How can I let this dance that I'm doing to my favorite song, or the way I brush my teeth, or the walk that I'm going, it doesn't have to be this like wholly other separate thing that's like, this is my sacred ritual that only exists in this special way. It could be something that millions of people do, but the way that you bring your heart and your passion to that action and the intention behind it, I am doing this to remember who I am, who I deserve to be, who is my birthright to be fully expressed, and what is it that is holding me back? And that answer is heavy, and there's a lot of grief to be unpacked, and for each of us in very unique ways, as to why we've forgotten the truth about ourselves. For me, a huge catalyst for my what I call embodiment journey that I've been on primarily these past almost 6 years since becoming a mother has been becoming a mother, having children, looking at them and seeing, like, God, I see it so clearly when I look at my 3 daughters who are ages 5, 4, and 2. I see it so clearly. It's irrefutable. Like, you are loved, you are embraced exactly as you are. This is undeniable. This is just completely unquestionable. And yet, when I would find myself kissing my firstborn daughter, who was born at the end of December of 2018, Hannah, goodnight as a newborn, not infrequently, as I would tell her, you are loved for who you are. You have nothing to prove. Grace is the ground of your being, baby girl. Then I would like kiss her goodnight, and I'd go into my room, I'm like weeping. Why? Why am I weeping? Because something somewhere, for some reason, I doesn't believe that to be true about myself. So I'm like telling this truth to my daughter, and I'm like, why is this so hard? Why do I have like a knot in my stomach? Why do I feel like I have to always be like, people pleasing and this like productivity based sense of self and always trying to perform and on edge if I'm misunderstood? Like, I don't want that for my daughter. I want that for my other daughter that was born 17 months later. I don't want that for my third daughter that was born 17 months after that. So there was this cracking, there was this kind of unraveling of having been very control-oriented for a long time. And I was conscious of that. I remember because Kyle, my partner, and I were married for 5 years before we had children. And we loved children. I worked with children. People would always be asking, well, are you going to have your kids? I'm like, I am not ready to release my illusion of control yet, so no kids for me. So I knew that would happen, but the extreme intensity of that was way beyond anything I could have ever fathomed. But yes, when Anna was born at the end of 2018, I really began to do this rewiring of, I'm going to have to go in here and really, really change some things in my psyche that I've picked up with all the conditioning of like what I have to do, what I have to prove, who I have to be in order to belong. That's a lie. Those narratives are a lie. We have nothing to prove. We're already beloved just as we are. We already belong just as we are. We are held. I want my daughters to see me actually embodying that, not just doing lip service to that and then see me live a life that doesn't actually match what I'm saying. Ooh, this is not an overnight decision. Here we go. So it's this whole unraveling, and I've had a daily journaling practice more or less since I was 15 years old. It's vacillated between poetry and prose. So I began, I would say, around the time of my third pregnancy in 2021 to have a lot more concentration on the poetry aspect, and specifically this idea of metamorphosis and the fact that it is through the portal of death that we experience life. That's just the way it is. You see that you don't have to be deeply spiritual or philosophical to just look around in nature and see you have to have the winter in order for there to be the spring. There has to be the barren, bereft, cold, hopeless-looking reality of life in order for there to be blooming. And wow, what courage it would take if we could actually internalize that for ourselves and undergo the grief that is a part of the human experience. We're all in this dance of joy and suffering, whether we like it or not. But instead of kind of gripping to this idea, if I just believe the right thing, if I just do this, I can avoid suffering, I can avoid the hard things. Yeah, and then you can callous your heart off and not really actually experience the fullness of life that you were made for. That's an option, and most of us understandably choose that out of survival. But if you have the support in place and you have the belief in yourself that it is your birthright to know the fullness of your beloved humanity, then it's empowering to be like, wow, I never would have chosen this. I never would have chosen to suddenly let go of my job. I never would have chosen, anything that is painful in our human experience. But can I believe that actually this can be used for my good and for my metamorphosis and for my freedom? Wow, maybe I actually can. Maybe I can let death break me open to new life. So I was writing metaphorically. I had this fascination the whole time I was pregnant with Sophia, specifically wow, I've already gone through all of these deaths of who I used to be, identities, being the good girl, all these things that I had found so much worth in for so many years. And then she was born, and it was just having 3 kids in less than 3 years is no joke. If I ever get invited to have a family planning talk, I will be like, don't do what I did, especially not during the pandemic. But obviously they're glorious and they're here and we're in love. But I was writing all this metaphorical poetry about, okay, I give myself over to the deaths of self, these identities that I would have written on my own index cards, right? I die to who I used to find so much worth in so that I can come alive to whoever the new person wanting to become through me is, for my daughter's sake, so that they can see me live free and that they can live free, right? And just the community at large. The more free we are, the more radically self-accepting and embracing we are of ourselves, the direct impact it has on everyone that we're in a relationship with. That's why radical self-acceptance is not selfish at all. It is of critical importance to our communities, but we just have not been taught to believe that, in my experience. So it's the rewiring of that for my daughter's sake, writing all this poetry about metamorphosis. Sophia was born in November of 2021. And I started advocating for, I did the artist dates as well. Julia Cameron's recommendation to take yourself. It is not a social thing. You take yourself to a park or a coffee shop. You're not gathering together with a friend or a partner or a family member. It is just for you to really actually get quiet with yourself, really listen to what's going on inside, do those morning pages journaling. I started going to hip-hop dance class in Richmond on Wednesday nights, volleyball on Monday nights, advocating for this space that a lot of me was like, but I don't deserve that, but I need to be home with the kids 80 hours a week, but I need to do, and just putting myself out there and being scared, but knowing that it was going to be worth it. And then suddenly and shockingly at age 35 last summer, I went in to get what I thought was just a cyst in my left breast checked out to make sure it was in fact just a cyst. And weeks later was being told that I had a terminal diagnosis. I have stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, which is currently not a curable type of cancer. So suddenly, I have no family history of this. I've been healthy and active my whole life. I have no pre-existing health conditions, and now you're with your family in a neurologist's office being told if you don't get 2 ports permanently placed on your body that you very likely will not live longer than 6 months. That was last summer. I did get the 2 ports placed on my body. I've been receiving chemo, and it's been going well, but I'm not anticipated to ever go into remission. So it's been really fascinating because, to put it lightly, obviously it has been unimaginable grief and shock, and yet I look back at my own journal entries from the 1.5, 2 years, 3 years directly preceding the diagnosis. And this is what I believe to be true about all of us. If anything that I'm saying about me is never just about me, it is about humanity, and it's about all of us, and that's why I was so excited to say yes to the opportunity to come together as a community, because what I believe to be true about all things that are beautiful, all things that are divine, is it doesn't belong to any of us, it belongs to all of us. So with art, for instance, or like the poetry that was being written, it was like it was being written through me. So as I'm reading it, I'm just like, it's not mine. I'm reading it. 3 weeks before the diagnosis, for instance, I wrote something that said, again, at that point in time, thinking it was exclusively metaphorically, I wrote, what if everything is a rehearsal for the final surrender? I wrote that 3 weeks before I got diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, just out of nowhere. No, because my spirit was being prepared to embrace the reality that, like, this is the way of things. We want to avoid it with everything in us until we find reason not to and hope not to. But this is the way of things. It is through death that life comes. Can we trust that? Can we give way to that? Can we say, I am so scared of my grief and so scared of my heaviness, and I have no idea what's on the other side of this, but I do believe that it can lead me back home to the truth, that I belong just as I am, that I'm beloved, and that I'm held, and that's why I'm doing this. This is why I'm putting rituals in place, to remember these things. If the things that we're doing aren't to remember those things, what are we doing? Because I believe what Annika said to be true, the most precious thing that we have is this time and energy, which is finite for all of us. FYI, you all have terminal diagnoses because you're human. Hate to break it to you if you didn't already know. It's really interesting, again, as someone who for years and years admittedly had a very big control issue, that we try to control basically like everything between birth and death so arduously, and then yet avoid, like, the one thing that is going to happen if you are a human being who has been born in the world is one day you will take your last breath and die. Everything in between is unknown, but there is that one known thing, but we don't want to give a lot of thought to that one thing. So again, it's been this interesting place I've found myself in, of course, never wanting for myself or anyone on planet Earth for cancer or disease of any kind to exist, and letting myself feel the sacred rage as the waves of it roll as they do. When I'm dancing in the kitchen feeling great, because 50% of the time I feel like this, and I look like this, and the other 50% of the time I'm in bed with a debilitating migraine or hospitalized, and, walking around with this massive invisible disability, essentially, it seems. And I'll be dancing feeling great in the kitchen with one of my daughters and suddenly be asked, Mama, is the cancer in your arm? And like, how did you get it? Did you get it from something you ate? You're just like, here we are. Like, can I let myself feel this and let myself be broken by this and let myself break open to deeper aliveness and deeper authenticity through this, not because of avoiding it, but through this pain. And I do not know your all stories, but again, I do know that you're a human, and I do know that you carry tremendous pain, and that you carry tremendous grief, and that you've been tremendously misunderstood and judged. And I know that you are worthy of remembering through whatever rituals you enact in your lives, that you belong just as you are, that you are beloved, and that you are held. That matters. Whatever in you feels stuck and stifled, that matters to listen to that voice, because you deserve more than that. And to me, creativity is authentic expression. So when we tap into our creative selves, it's not just like, oh, this little side project where I'm making my painting or writing my poetry. It's like, this is me getting to be the fullness of the aliveness that I was made for. And to not have a really interesting relationship with the word humility, because I think a lot of us dim our lights in the name of humility, or like scared. Oh, but I don't want to speak up about that. Who are you not to, though? As I think Maya Angelou says, like, who are you not to come into your power? And again, it's the least selfish thing. It's the most empowering thing when a person is truly free and knows their belovedness. How can that not be the greatest gift that they can give energetically to everyone that they're in a relationship with? Because then you eradicate the inner critic judgment from within, and there's less of it to project out onto everyone that you're in a relationship with. But until you do the work within, then it's going to exist in there. And to me, art is such a necessary refuge and tool. When we tap into our creative selves, then that authentic expression is like, yes, you're giving me a place to come out. Thank you. And you can feel it in a way that your mind can't intellectualize or rationalize or explain, but you get in whatever that zone is for you. And for the longest time, I did not consider myself an artist in any way, or a creative person, because I wasn't, a gallery artist or like a singer-songwriter. I hadn't published a book yet. You are creative, period. As the manifesto says, you are a human being. You are creative. You are an artist, period. If you don't believe that, then there's your challenge today. Why? Why do I not believe I'm an artist? Because it is the truth. You are an artist. You were created to be creative. So whatever is holding you back from that is holding you back from your authentic expression, and then therefore holding you back from the aliveness that you were made for, which will necessarily require death, unfortunately. Hate to break it to you. For me, it's funny. Thank you for those of you who have commented on my pants. If you have known me for longer than the past 3 years, then this is not my style at all. Prior to like a couple of years ago, I pretty much just wear like very boring clothes a lot, which is fine. But letting more color and vibrancy into my life has been a critical sign to me of the healing taking place within. I'm like, oh, I remember distinctly, a couple of years ago, I was in CVS, just going to get a prescription. And I saw this like $9.99 rainbow scarf that literally wouldn't have even caught my eye before, much less would I have ever bought a $9.99 rainbow scarf from CVS, which I did that day. But I was like, this is amazing. Like, I am a new person. I would not have seen this. I would not have bought this. I would not have worn this. And it's really cool to let what's going on inwardly be reflected on the outside like that. And with that, I wrote a poem that I wanted to close with before we get back to the index cards. It's called Obvious Signs. I wrote this earlier this month about the gravitation towards color and what that has meant towards the authentic expression and saying yes to the aliveness wanting to come through. I wrote this on my dad's birthday, actually, August 3rd. It's called Obvious Signs. Finding myself gravitating towards color more and more has been one of the most obvious signs of the shift taking place within. I realized a long time ago that pleasing other people is not what I was made to do. So then I shifted that performance-based sense of self to pleasing God. When I became a mother, the good girl that I thought was me began to make funeral arrangements. The divine needs no defending, asks for no proving, only desires to dance. Can my ego handle it? Wanting so desperately to earn its way, it knows nothing of the faith it takes to accept grace, the faith it takes to commit to growing a capacity to tolerate being misunderstood, the faith it takes to consider the messiness of your humanity, to contemplate all that could be considered regrets and bring about shame and consciously choose instead. With tears streaming down your face as your hands hold your shoulders in the mirror to embrace the extravagance of kindness that was never not being extended to you. This fierce forgiveness does not delight in our insistence to take ourselves to trial. I'm shaking because this matters so much. But it's joyful when we let go of the judgment, not out of apathy, but out of trust that justice is not our job to carry out, but that the greatest difference is made through the lives of those that know that they are free. Souls that know the state of being, that can rest in the love they are held by, ever surrendering to the metamorphosis. Others will deny the power of pursuing freedom and social change through radical self-acceptance because it's downright terrifying to let go of all they've been clinging so tightly to for their worth. Your freedom triggers their trauma-induced illusion that it's impossible to belong, impossible to be loved without meeting a certain expectation. One second. They're my kids that were over here. Not my kids, but the beautiful other children. Let your wings speak for themselves. Glistening, golden, glorious. The most obvious sign of what is real. Again, I don't know many of your all's personal stories of the trauma, the grace that you carry being a human in this world, because it is fucking hard. And it is so fucking beautiful and so worth it, and you are worth it. I'd like to end by asking you to pick those index cards back up, and as much as you identify with everything that you wrote on there, the 3 lines that hopefully you left room for there at the bottom, I would like for you to write these 3 things. Beloved is my name. That's the first one. Beloved is my name. I belong just as I am. I am self. Again, beloved is my name. I belong just as I am. I am elf. And I invite you, as you go into whatever this weekend holds for you, that whatever you find honestly and courageously within yourself that is resistant, maybe even angry, I have no idea what emotions come up for you, but maybe it's supernatural to write those things, or maybe you're like, this feels like a lie, this feels awkward, I feel like I'm going to throw up. I have no clue how you feel writing those 3 things, but I do believe them to be true about you. And I know very little, but I will say that if there's anything in the world that I know those 3 truths to be true about every human being on this earth. And that you are worthy of knowing that for yourself. So that the invitation would be to enact whatever rituals you are so worthy of that will help you remember. And so remember that in order to remember, there's going to have to be a releasing. There's going to have to be death. There's going to have to be metamorphosis. There's no other way to be able to get to it. So it is going to be challenging. But it will be worth it, and it is your divine birthright to know those things. I'd love if we could repeat those 3 things together. Does everyone have them on the cards here? Okay, so if you could repeat after me. Beloved is my name.
Beloved is my name.
I belong just as I am.
I belong just as I am.
I am held.
I am.
Thank you so much. This was such an honor.